Okay. Now it's deja vu time.
Yeah, 6F2.
6F2.
Georgie Moore, Coke Tie.
Georgie Moore, Code Die must be F for Fargo.
F for Fargo. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. You've heard this item discussed ad infinitum and ad nauseum, I think. I've been talking with some of the board members. We're here before you today because the board asked that you reconsider this and provide some specific information relating to actions that were taken in the current paving project related to the ranchettes and provide options as far as what may occur with Fargo. Staff thinks we've done that in the item. We've identified specific issues, identified them very detailed, gave you a probably way too long synopsis of the history, which led to the paving and where we are of the roads that have recently been finished in the east-west direction. With that, I think that staff is here to, in essence, look for direction from the board as to what do you want to do with Fargo. We've given you our recommendation, but in meeting with you individually, we've also heard that there is a potential interest in going forward with the paving of Fargo, and we have circulated to your offices earlier today some motions related to the paving of Fargo. So we have the staff recommendation, which is to not pave Fargo. We don't have any money. But at the same time, we also have the ability to take the board's direction and, as Mr. Wiseman and I said yesterday when we were meeting with you, go and see what we can do to front the money and then assess the residents along Fargo and, what is key, the other benefiting properties in what in essence is the large portion of the neighborhood. What we've outlined, if in fact you're moving forward in thinking about paving, that in fact a large segment of the neighborhood, all the properties between Blanchette and Fargo, would pay a proportionate cost toward the paving of Fargo. Those people, in some instances, have already been assessed for roads in front of their houses. And we heard the other day that people in the ranchettes at least have 2 assessments currently because they've had an assessment for water just a couple years ago. Most of them have an assessment for paving roads in front of their houses. And some of them have paid a 3rd assessment back in 1989 when we assessed the community for Blanchette and Palomino. So in some instances, this will be a 4th assessment for some of the residents out there. With that, I think unless I'm going to look to my boss and ask Mr. Wiseman if he wants to make any comments, but I think we're just leave it up for a board discussion and we'll see if we can get some direction and move on with this project.
I've got 2 cards, but Mr. Abrams, I saw you. Okay, I've got 2 cards here. Edward Herman and Mr. Schaller.
Hi, everybody. What a day. Seems pretty anticlimactic to be dealing with this again after all you've dealt with today and I've sat and listened to.
Can you pull the mic up a little bit?
I certainly can. A little anticlimactic, but where I live with my wife, 3 kids, dog, fish, cat, all the usual things, I am at the intersection of Yearling and Fargo, where from what I understand, the new proposal is to end the paving of Fargo. That is the southeast corner of my yard. The road that's 400 feet further down Fargo is Pinion. Pinion is also a paved road, but for whatever reason, the plan that I'm aware of, it may have changed, shows there not being paving done in front of my house or my neighbor's house connecting to the other paved road, which is kind of unusual for a distribution road. The thing that makes that even worse for me is that currently the drainage in my area, whenever we get a good rain, my kids have a ball because we get what we affectionately refer to as Lake Herman in my front yard. If you pave that road and end it at the southeast corner of my house, the north end of my yard is the drainage canal. All the water that can no longer percolate down through that soil that is a road right now will end up in my yard. And in a good storm, like say, hurricane, refer back, may in fact flood my house. Great concern for me, obviously. I'm trying to figure out why we would end the paving of a distribution road when you come off of 441, come down Palomino, to get to any one of those long streets that you see on the pictures going across, Fargo is where you take left and right and you go to those streets. Now, I understand Arrowhead being the last street over by Olympia. You see the big development at the edge of your page. I understand they don't want to get paved because all of us who have only one-sided addresses on these roads are being told we're basically, or at the previous plan, now I heard something different, we were all being told we'd be charged $15,000 for paving, where all of our neighbors got charged $7,500. So that whole road, because there's nobody across the street, is probably never going to be paved, if that's the deal. But to not connect to Pinion, which is just a 400-foot gap, doesn't seem to make any sense. But then again, if we do pave that, we're going to have to do a bit of digging in that canal, some drainage improvement, or else my house goes under. Beep. Any question?
So you support paving of Fargo all the way?
Yes, yes. Even though I don't know what the financial aspect of this is ever going to end up to be, because I've heard so many different plans. But if we're going to pave it all. That's how we should have begun this project in the beginning. Pave all the streets, just like we did eventually with the water, which, yes, was another nightmare. I'm a public servant too, so I understand how all this gets convoluted and pulled apart. But I have to say I support it if it goes all the way through, but if they're going to end it at my house, no. Because it will dump all the water into my home, front yard at least.
Okay.
Any further? Nope.
Mr. Schaller?
Should we have a comment from George what the plan is?
Yeah, just right now, there are various options. One of what the gentleman was just talking about was Yearling was the northernmost east-west road of the current project. And one of the discussion points would be, well, we could just tie into that. That would be a logical termini, using the funds to try and get Fargo paved within the confines of the existing east-west road project. The logic of taking it to Pinion and on to Arrowhead, the two streets to the north of Yearling, where Mr. Herman is also reasonable in thinking, let's just get out there one time and just get the whole thing built all the way up to Arrowhead. If you do that, one of the options in the paving that we've proffered to you is that then all the neighbors in the east-west roads, with the exception of Palomino, would be benefiting by the paving of Fargo and would have a proportional assessment put to them. So it's very, very reasonable if the board wanted to settle, if you wanted to go the paving direction, to take it all the way and not to leave a gap at the north end. The limits are the same for both A and B. It's the whole thing from El Paso at the south, Arrowhead to the north. So,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
George, what would be the consequence of not paving it at all? I understand the suggestion, if you start paving, pave it. What would be the consequence of?
The residents would continue to have to maintain it. It's a privately maintained road and has been since its inception out there. The drainage is very poor. It will continue to not drain well. We think we've helped a little bit with some of the new drainage we put in an east-west direction, but they will continue to bear, the residents that are out there today, and there's, I think, 3 or 4 of them that share in the expense. They run their equipment up and down, grading it themselves and so forth.
What I'm trying to compare in my mind is the consequence for the drainage. We heard from the previous speaker about Lake Herman. Whether it would be, if by not paving would be as disastrous as that, or which is the scenario if we paved a portion?
If we paved a portion of it and stopped, it would be a benefit. In his scenario, the lake wouldn't be quite as big. But the lake would still be there because, in fact, the drainage to the north of him tries to head back in that direction as well. And frankly, where his lot is situated, he can't flow out very well, so it puddles or turns into a lake on Fargo property. Is it
better for him to do nothing as opposed to just pave a portion? The best scenario